Most people spend their entire lives building things they can touch: houses, careers, reputations, bank accounts, but very few ever stop to ask, what kind of person am I becoming while I build all of this? In today's world, people are exhausted. They wake up early, work long hours, chase bigger goals, yet still feel strangely empty inside. Why? Because many of us believe success is something waiting at the finish line. We think peace comes after the work is done. But sometimes, the way we live each day quietly becomes the life we are trapped inside. And that's where most people fail. Not because they are lazy, not because they are untalented, but because they spend years building their lives carelessly, one rushed decision at a time. This story is about an old carpenter who discovered that truth too late. And his final lesson may completely change the way you look at your own life. In a small American town, surrounded by pine forests and quiet dirt roads, there lived a young man named Daniel. Daniel had big dreams. He wanted success. He wanted respect. He wanted to give his future family a better life than the one he grew up with. At 22, he started working for a construction company owned by an old carpenter named Walter. Walter was known throughout the town for building beautiful homes. Not the biggest homes, not the most expensive, but homes that lasted. People trusted Walter because every piece of wood he touched seemed to carry care inside it. Daniel admired him at first, but unlike Walter, Daniel hated slow work. He rushed everything. If nobody was watching, he cut corners. If a measurement looked close enough, he moved on. If cheaper materials saved time, he used them. To Daniel, speed mattered more than craftsmanship. Done is better than perfect, he often said with a laugh. And for a while, that attitude seemed to work. He finished jobs quickly. He earned more money. Others his age envied him. But deep inside, Daniel constantly felt frustrated. No matter how hard he worked, he never felt proud of what he built. Every project became just another paycheck. And slowly, without realizing it, Daniel began treating his own life the same way he treated his work. Rushed, careless, always chasing the next thing. Years passed. Daniel became one of the company's lead builders, but he was exhausted. His relationships never lasted. His mind was always restless. Even when he achieved something, the satisfaction disappeared almost immediately. One cold autumn evening, Daniel sat alone in his truck after work. Rain tapped softly against the windshield. Earlier that day, a wealthy client had complained about mistakes in a house Daniel supervised. Crooked shelves, loose floorboards, tiny flaws hidden behind beautiful paint. Daniel felt angry, not at the client, at himself. For the first time in years, he looked at his own reflection and quietly whispered, "What am I doing with my life?" That question haunted him, because deep down, he knew the truth. He had spent years trying to build success, without building character. The next morning, Walter noticed something was wrong. The old carpenter walked slowly beside Daniel at the construction site and asked, "You ever wonder why some houses feel warm the moment you walk inside, while others feel empty?" Daniel shrugged. "A house is just wood and nails." Walter smiled gently. "No, son. A house is the spirit of the person who built it." Daniel looked away, and for the first time, he was ready to listen. A few weeks later, Walter announced his retirement. After 40 years of building homes, his hands had become weak and worn. But before leaving, he gave Daniel one final assignment. "Build one last house for me," Walter said. "The best one you can." Daniel forced a smile, but inside he felt irritated. He had already mentally moved on from the company. He wanted bigger opportunities in the city. So instead of giving the project his best effort, he rushed it. Cheap wood, lazy measurements, sloppy finishing. He told himself, "It's just one house." Meanwhile, Walter visited the site almost every evening, quietly observing. One afternoon, while the sun burned orange behind the trees, Walter picked up two pieces of wood from the ground. One was strong and polished. The other was cracked inside. Walter handed them to Daniel. "Tell me which one will last longer." "The strong one," Daniel answered immediately. Walter nodded. "Do you know why most people break in life?" Daniel stayed silent. "Because they spend years polishing the outside while ignoring the cracks within?" The old carpenter pointed toward the unfinished house. "People think success is what others see, but character is what quietly holds everything together when storms arrive." Daniel felt those words land heavily in his chest. But still, he didn't fully understand. Not yet. On the final day, the house was complete. From the outside, it looked beautiful. Fresh paint, clean windows, perfect landscaping. Anyone passing by would have admired it. Walter arrived early that morning carrying a small metal toolbox. He slowly walked through every room in silence. His fingers touched the weak walls, the uneven cabinets, the rushed details hidden beneath the surface. Daniel stood nervously nearby. Finally, Walter reached into his pocket and pulled out a small key. Then he placed it into Daniel's hand. "I don't understand," Daniel said. Walter smiled sadly. "This house belongs to you." Daniel froze. "What?" "I wanted to thank you for all your years of work," Walter said softly. "So I built this house for your future." The room became painfully quiet. Suddenly, Daniel saw everything differently. Every shortcut, every careless decision, every rushed moment. He realized he had not been building a house for someone else. He had been building his own home, and it was weak. Walter looked out the window toward the distant mountains and said, "Life works the same way, son. Every habit becomes a nail. Every choice becomes a wall. Every day you build the house, you will eventually live inside." Daniel's eyes filled with regret. Walter continued, "Most people don't notice they are building their future poorly until they are handed the keys." For a long moment, neither man spoke. Only the sound of wind moved softly through the trees outside. Then Walter gave one final lesson Daniel would never forget. Build slowly enough that you can still be proud when life hands the work back to you. That night, Daniel sat alone inside the empty house. For the first time in his life, he truly saw himself. Not the successful version he pretended to be, not the confident worker others admired, but the tired man created by years of careless living. And strangely, that realization changed everything. The next morning, Daniel returned to the house with new materials. He began rebuilding, one wall at a time, one mistake at a time. Weeks turned into months. For the first time, he stopped rushing. He measured carefully. He listened more. He worked in silence, and slowly, something unexpected happened. The house improved, but so did Daniel. He became calmer, more patient, more honest. Years later, people across the town spoke highly of Daniel's craftsmanship. But what made him different wasn't his skill. It was the feeling inside the homes he built. They felt warm, peaceful, strong. Young workers often asked him the secret to his success. Daniel would simply smile and say, "Every day, you are building the place your future self will live in." And whenever he trained new carpenters, he always repeated Walter's lesson. Don't build carelessly just because nobody is watching, because eventually, you will live inside the life you built. The truth is, life is not built in giant moments. It is built in small, daily choices nobody notices. The way you speak to people, the habits you repeat, the promises you keep, the effort you give when nobody is watching, all of it becomes the home your future self will someday inherit. So take your time, build carefully, and remember, a beautiful life is not created overnight. It is crafted patiently, like a strong house built by caring hands. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment below and share the lesson that stayed with you the most. And if you enjoy meaningful stories about life, wisdom, and personal growth, subscribe for more. Because sometimes, one simple story can quietly change the way we live forever.